Russia's Black Dolphin prison houses some of the country's toughest, most violent criminals.
What prison conditions could make the worst serial killer wish to die instead? You're about to find out as we take a look at Russia's Owl Prison, where prisoners expect to die at minus 50 degrees Celsius, and others that are even worse than that.
In this cell, a man who raped 44 minors and killed 5 children.
Polar Owl Prison. Imagine a detainee having to spend the rest of his life in a place that is about a 3-day journey away from every form of civilization. And worse still, is covered in ice all year round. That sounds like the worst punishment anyone could serve for whatever crime they've committed. However, it is just the tip of the iceberg as far as the Russian Polar Owl Prison is concerned. The correctional facility, which is officially known as Penal Colony Number 18 of the Federal Penitentiary Service of Russia, is situated in North Russia, high on the Arctic Circle. Prisoners are moved by train from Moscow to the nearest train station, and the journey takes more than 2 days, after which they have to travel a few more kilometers on a bus before they arrive at the correctional facility. The Polar Owl Prison is another universe, and in every sense it is thousands of miles away from our normal world. The prison is known for its excessive cold, which can drop as low as minus 40 degrees Celsius, making it impossible to even find a polar bear in the region. So the prison got its name from a combination of the excessively cold temperature and the large sculpted owl at the main entrance. It is one of the 7 most dreaded penitentiaries where the most hardened convicts are kept. Talk of serial killers, political terrorists, and every serious offender you can think of. Okay, here is a little bit of context. One of the most popular inmates that have been detained in the Polar Owl Prison is Alexander Pichushkin, a Russian serial killer who killed over 60 people for fun. Crazy, right? According to him, he was planning to kill enough people to fill every box on the chessboard. After he was convicted, he was sentenced to life imprisonment in the solitary confinement, and after he faced the intense conditions of the prison, he said it was better to be dead than to live there all his life. I mean, if a killer of such a class thinks that the prison is unbearable, no one needs to be there to know that it's just totally out of hand. And of course, it couldn't have been about the freezing temperature alone. Apart from its notoriety for an extremely low temperature that can make the strongest man freeze to death, the Polar Owl Prison puts inmates in the worst psychological conditions possible. One inmate described it as a system designed to completely break the human spirit. The prison has single cells and double cells with a bed on which the inmates must not lie or even sit until lights out at 10 p.m. I mean, it's a huge mental torture to sit in one position all through the day for the rest of your life, isn't it? But when you think of the gravity of the crimes that brought the criminals to the penal colony in the first place, we can conclude that the punishment serves them right. However, the prison management decided to ease their pains a little, and each inmate is allowed to go on a walk for 1 hour and 30 minutes daily. The walk isn't even as nice as you would think anyway. It's just a little time out in another confinement with high concrete walls. The only difference is that the confinement is covered with iron bars instead of a normal roof, so that the prisoner can see the sky. It's really nice of the prison managers to have thought of such a brilliant and humane idea, if you ask me. But in their niceness, they would still have a security guard walking around on the iron bars to keep an eye on the inmate. So while the prisoner may be trying to relax and gaze at the sky, he would still have his mind fixed on his long-lasting doom, knowing that it would never end. To add to the mental torture, inmates are not given the chance to have any sense of community. This is believed to be the toughest part because most Russian prisoners form bonds and communities that keep them going and make their lives in prison bearable. However, the case is totally different in the Polar Owl Prison. I mean, imagine that there are currently over 300 inmates serving time in the prison, and no one really knows or talks to anyone all through their lives there. Inmates are only confined to their cells and never get any opportunities to see other inmates when they step out of the cells. No cafeterias, no joint exercises, no corporate timeout. Though they have double cells, each inmate has only one roommate who they can only communicate with in whispers. And all through their life sentence, they would only get to see and interact with their roommates, and the prison guards at least. They also get to see their family members just once in a year during visitations. Or some may never see them again, since the visitors have to go through a long process of registration ahead of time, and even travel that long distance into the cold just to see an inmate for only a few minutes. I mean, thinking of that, it may not really be worth it, right? It is safe to say that life in the Polar Isle prison is just a bland repetition of the same boring routines. Nothing fun, just some physical torture wrapped in a lot of mental torment. From the same food the inmates eat, to the radio shows they listen to, and the selected movies they are allowed to watch once in a week, the lives of the inmates are completely programmed, and they just rinse and repeat. In all of this, one thing that remains shocking is the fact that the Polar Isle prison holds no record of a successful escape attempt, despite the intense conditions in the prison. With cells enclosed in 3 iron doors, 5 layers of iron fences built around the facility, and 20 heavy Caucasian shepherd dogs that are ready to swing to action at the command of the guards, escape is totally impossible. An inmate named Alexander Elistratrov proved this to be right in 2011 when he tried to run away from the prison. When the guards took him for his daily walk, Elistratrov held the door with a small iron he had, and he ran off before the guard could notice. He climbed the fence and tried to jump off, but he dropped right into the jaws and claws of the Caucasian shepherd dogs, who were eager to tear him apart if the guards hadn't intervened. However, things never remained the same for him, because he was sent to the single penal enclosure, where he had to spend days all by himself as a punishment for even trying to escape. And he eventually passed away a few months after his failed escape attempt. The prison management also learned from the situation, and they added more layers to the iron fence for more security. So since that attempt, no prisoner has ever tried to escape the Polar Isle. They simply accept their sentence in good or bad faith, and they adjust to their new solitary life while expecting to either die by freezing in the extremely cold temperature or by the psychological hardships they are made to face in the facility. Oh, if you think that the conditions in the Polar Isle prison are too unbearable and completely out of line, then get ready for a big shocker, because I'm about to show you other prisons that are even worse. The last one is out of this world, Butyrka Prison. The Butyrka Prison would pass as a direct opposite of Polar Isle, and this makes it one of the most dangerous prisons in Russia. It is located in the Tverskoy district of central Moscow, where the temperature gets extremely hot during summer. So when inmates in the Polar Isle prison are complaining about the excessive cold, it is unbearable heat for detainees in the Butyrka prison. Dating as far back as the 17th century, the Butyrka prison is one of the oldest in Russia, and the current building was constructed in 1879 during the reign of Catherine the Great. It was used as a transit home for prisoners during the Soviet Union era in the 1900s. However, the prison facility served several functions over the years. And now, when you peek behind the bars of this old prison, you are most likely to find political prisoners, revolutionaries, terrorists, and opponents of the government. The prison is known to be one of the largest in Russia, but it comes as a shock that it is the most overcrowded, with about 100 people in a cell that was built for 10. This is another factor that puts the Butyrka prison at the extreme opposite of Polar Isle. Due to this issue of overcrowding, detainees are more likely to die faster from diseases than any other factors, since tuberculosis and AIDS are on the rise in Russia. In fact, the prison guards move inmates in congested vans such that the healthy ones are exposed to tuberculosis even before they are moved into the prison cells. Also, since most of the inmates are drug users, there is usually one needle per cell, and this spreads AIDS even faster among the inmates. I mean, imagine 100 inmates sharing just one needle. At the end of the day, it would be difficult to find a single healthy inmate in the Butyrka prison, and this is what makes it a very dangerous prison in Russia. In a way, this spread of AIDS and tuberculosis in the prison seems more like an intentional act by the prison managers to further punish the offenders. I mean, the spread of diseases can be avoided if they want, but how else can lifers be punished for rebelling against the government and causing chaos in the nation, if not through incurable diseases? That sure sounds more like what they would think. White Swan Prison. Officially known as the Penal Colony No. 2, the White Swan Prison is one of the 7 supermax prisons in Russia. It is located in Perm-Krai, and like the 2 previous penitentiaries mentioned, it also houses convicts that have been sentenced to life imprisonment. Though the prison was established in 1938 as a penal colony for political offenders, most especially priests, it became a permanent home for lifers in 1999. And since that year, no detainee has ever been discharged from the prison for any reason. Unlike the Butyrka prison, White Swan has a very large capacity with only 1/3 of the space occupied by about 300 inmates. And this gives room for up to 3 people in a cell. However, the conditions of the cell still makes it one of the most feared in Russia. To give a clue of the kind of lifestyle the inmates are made to live, the name White Swan was coined from the bright white color of the prison and the guards' method of moving the inmates. The inmates are made to bend over at an angle of 90 degrees, and the guard holds their handcuffed hands. So they are made to walk from cell to cell in that manner, and the inmate thinks it makes them look like a swan. Well, they aren't totally wrong about that, are they? One more thing that makes the White Swan prison different from other supermax Russian prisons is that it was built to cut off every form of communication between prisoners and the outside world. So inmates are not allowed to even listen to the radio or watch the television once in a while like in some other facilities. But that's not the jaw-dropping fact. The worst part is that inmates are not allowed to receive visitors at all. I mean, how crazy is that? This means that once they find themselves within the confines of the White Swan prison, they must have said their final goodbyes to everything and everyone they love, and they will never get to see them till they die. This seems like the farthest any prison facility would go to punish their inmates. But if you think of the depth of offense that would take anyone to this kind of prison, then there is no level of punishment such people don't deserve, if you ask me. If they love their friends and family so much, maybe they should have stayed far away from any crime. Knowing that the conditions of this prison can make inmates go crazy in a few months of being there, the White Swan prison has on-site professional psychologists, and one of their major roles is to assess the inmates before they are paired with roommates. This way, they only get to pair psychologically compatible inmates as roommates, and it helps them to avoid conflicts and manage the inmates well. Also, the psychologist would have a minor role of attending to the inmates when the prison conditions drive them crazy. That goes to show that the prison management is aware of how much they've made the White Swan prison a piece of hell on earth. However, to make the conditions a bit palatable, the guards allow the inmates to have a daily walk of up to an hour, and they are also entitled to a 10-minute bath once in a week. Isn't that such a kind gesture from the prison management? I mean, it is good enough that they are even allowed to leave their cells to take a bath because the situation is worse in other facilities. And that brings us to the next prison I'm about to show you, Black Dolphin Prison. If you've ever wondered what kind of punishment could really break the most hardened criminals and make them shed hot tears, then the Black Dolphin Prison ticks all the boxes. Officially, the Penal Colony No. 6, the Black Dolphin Prison is one of the oldest in Russia. It was built in 1745, but the strict living conditions haven't changed one bit, and it is still considered the toughest prison in Russia after many millennia. Initially, it was built to house people sentenced to life imprisonment with hard labor, and it got its nickname from a sculpted black dolphin which was built at the main entrance by an inmate. However, it was converted to a prison for the most hardened criminals, maniacs, terrorists, child molesters, and most especially, cannibals. Housing these kinds of offenders makes the Black Dolphin extremely tough and highly secure. The inmates are kept in isolated cells that are built in cells. This means that inmates are locked behind bars, after bars after bars, and they are under 24-hour surveillance, making it impossible for anyone to escape or even plan an escape. 2 inmates share a small cell of about 50 square feet, and they have to stand in their cells all through the day. Yep, you heard that right. Inmates are not allowed to sit or lie down until lights out. How unbelievably tormenting is that? And to even make sure that they comply, the prison guards make rounds every 15 minutes, and no one must be found sitting all through the day. What happens if anyone is found flouting the rules? Of course, it's a more solitary confinement, and trust me, no one wants to be sent to the single cell to stand for days, no matter how hardened they are. Well, before you think that's the height of it, I guess you should know that they are only allowed to eat just one thing for the rest of their lives in the prison. The prisoners are only served soup and bread 4 times a day every day. Now you can decide which is worse, standing all through the day or eating the same thing every day for the rest of your life. However, the monotony of the Black Dolphin prison is not limited to what they eat alone. They are only allowed to read books, newspapers, or listen to the radio. Nothing fun or entertaining, maybe except the 90 minutes that they have to do exercises in a day. And by exercises, I mean pacing up and down a large cage that is fully secured by the guards. If that really counts as an exercise. Just like in the Polar Owl prison, the inmates are also not allowed to have a sense of community here. There is no prison yard for any outdoor activities, no cafeteria for a joint mealtime. Their meals are passed through a hole and the inmates eat in their cells. The inmates are even blindfolded whenever they are being moved from one cell to another. The prison management says it is to make sure that they do not have a clue of what their prison environment looks like in order to prevent them from planning an escape. New inmates that are being moved in are also blindfolded for the same reason. One thing that is also worthy of note about the Black Dolphin prison is the fact that there are more guards than prisoners. As of now, there are about 700 inmates and about 900 guards in the prison. Sure, you're wondering why that is. Well, each cell has the name of the inmates and their crimes. And if you ever take a walk through, you will be shocked at the kind of demons that stand behind those bars. All right, let's make this make some sense. Imagine just one man raping 44 women and killing 5 children in just one lifetime, or one man killing his friend and chopping him up. Crazy as it sounds, these are the real cases of criminals you will find in the Black Dolphin prison.
In this cell, a man who raped 44 minors and killed 5 children.
In fact, the second case is actually an inmate named Vladimir Nikolaev who served time in the Black Dolphin prison for cannibalism. The psychopath got into a drunken fight with his friends, killed one of them, and dragged him into the bathroom. He went ahead and chopped the guy into pieces, ate some parts, and sold the rest to a family as kangaroo meat. I mean, it takes some level of depravity to do that, right? Another notable inmate of the Black Dolphin prison is a guy named Alexander Maslik, who was already serving time for murder in another prison facility, but was transferred to Black Dolphin after he killed his roommate in the previous prison and managed to eat him. Now, you should know why these people deserve to be locked up in a place like Black Dolphin forever. However, the prison management is still nice enough to allow them work in the woodshop or with the sewing machine so that they can make money to buy more food or personal items. They are also entitled to 4 visits per year, unlike in other facilities. That's a bit too nice of them, if you ask me. Anyway, the Black Dolphin prison seems to be doing a good job because most of the inmates get to see the wrongs in what they have done as the years go by. In fact, in a documentary, a 45-year-old inmate who has been in the prison for 25 years stated how everyone regrets the actions that bring them to the prison only after a few months in the facility. Some other inmates also mentioned how they begin to battle with mental illnesses in just a few months of being exposed to the harsh life in Black Dolphin prison. Some other documentaries have also shown these hardened criminals shedding tears and lamenting about how they have to spend the rest of their lives in such conditions. However, the bright side for the people of the outside world is that no matter how much these criminals regret and cry their eyes out, they are never coming out of the 4 walls of Black Dolphin prison. I mean, once anyone finds themselves in that confinement, it's a lifetime deal. In fact, they would never even try to escape because the inmates themselves know that it's a dead end. All right, this is where we come to the end of this intriguing video. What do you think of these Russian prisons? Do you think the conditions are too harsh, regardless of the kind of criminals that they hold? Let us know what you think in the comment section.